Welcome to Safe Harbour, a conversational, unscripted podcast where myself, Phil Askew, and Jamie Robins, two practicing coaches in the UK, explore men's mental health in modern times. On each episode, we have frank and open conversations and leave you with valuable tips and tools to try out yourself, to regain balance, get clarity, and find real fulfillment in your lives. Enjoy the show. So here we are with episode 2, and Jamie and I are back in the studio, and we're going to be looking at the mindfulness attitude of patience. And just before the show, we were having a brief conversation just to sort of explore what we wanted to talk about here. And it was a little bit kind of foggy. We didn't necessarily have any sort of clear definition of what patience is by way of a conversation starter. What was your fogginess around patience, Jamie?
I guess, I mean, the one that we did last week, non-judgment, it was loaded. I think we could probably do an episode for 3 hours around non-judgment. Patience is, I don't know, I just, when I heard the word patience, I just hear my mum going, just be patient, slow down. Don't be so bullish, be patient, just let it happen. So they're the words that initially come up for me around starting this conversation. Is just slow down, be patient, because I'm a doer, and I'm constantly doing. I notice, and I have to really practice mindfulness and meditation and all of those things that have me slow down in order to not be this adrenaline. Because when I'm coaching, I'm patient. Actually, when I'm working with my clients, when I'm working with men, I have to be patient. I have to be patient around their process. You know, their realizations and their process and their aha moments. It's not for me to tell them what to do as a coach. That's not our job. It's to be patient and sit and listen and be present. So when I put that phone down to end a call with a client, then the doing Jamie comes back in the room. And I'm back on Instagram, and I'm promoting, and I'm doing this, and I'm making things happen. I'm a doer. So that's what initially comes up for me.
Yeah, I love that. You actually put me in the context of being a coach and a coachee as well there. And yeah, so because I know being on the receiving end, sometimes we've done some practice coaching together, you and I, we just happen to have a conversation. Or if I'm talking about something which is really difficult for me, or I'm struggling, you're incredibly patient. And how you listen is incredibly spacious and mindful of me finishing and what I'm saying, and giving me so much space. And I think that's probably true for me as well, being a coach. With my clients, they say that I create a lot of safe space, and I think that safe space requires that patience, doesn't it? It's like not butting in. It's not coming with the solutions or suggestions. It's kind of, you need to be patient to wait and anticipate their wisdom to come up to the surface and make itself known. So it's interesting, yeah, because and also equally the way that I show up after a client session is I'm definitely not patient with myself. I'm not. And I think that is tough. I think I have a tendency to move quickly in my thinking and in my expectations of myself. I have this real tendency I need to be expert at this really fast, really quick. I was just curious, when I say that, anything else been surfaced for you when I mentioned that?
I notice I'm always on to the next thing. I'm always on to the next shiny thing. And that's something that's been pointed out to me when I've been coached, when I've been the coachee, is one thing that I do is I get my teeth into a project, and I get really excited about it, and I don't quite finish it. I get 3/4 of the way through, and I go, oh, what's that over there? And I go, oh, look, let's go over here. This looks really shiny. And leave that thing unfinished. And I have to drag myself back to that thing and just be patient to just go, no, we need to stay and finish this, mate, because you've worked really hard for the last 6 weeks. Get it done, get it finished. So that's what comes up for me when you say that, yeah.
I think there is something definitely about that for me as well. There's a really great self-assessment tool called Strengths Finder, and patience isn't necessarily, when it comes to a project or long-term longevity of a project, I do battle to see it all the way through. What I really love doing is formulation and ideation and all that stuff, and that's when I'm working with founders and coaches around that. I can really help them join up all the dots. But when it comes to my stuff and then seeing it all the way down the line, I've noticed I had to outsource that stuff to a VA, and I was making it wrong that I wasn't persisting and having the patience to see it all the way through. And that was
Yeah.
really hard, because I don't have patience for the nitty-gritty of things like that.
Yeah, and learning instruments. I've never learned an instruments because I don't have the fucking patience to do that 10,000 hours thing. I really wish I'd have. It's one of my biggest regrets is not picking up a guitar and having the patience to just stick with it, and get over that little threshold of, "Oh, and now I can do this with my fingers, and now I can do that." I've got a mate who's been playing since he was, like, 10 years old, and he's in his early 50s. Oh my god, I just envy him so much, that he had the patience, and he's a very patient guy. He will sit. I've seen him. I've walked past him sometimes. He's in a cafe, sitting having a cup of tea, just sat there patiently, looking, watching the world go by. He must think I'm mad. Most of my mates go, "Right, Jamie, calm down, slow down a bit. You're trying to cram too many things in, dude. Just come and sit and have a cup of tea." I haven't got time, mate. I'll be back. I tell you what, I go and do all my shopping around the farmers market. If I've got time at the end, I'll come in and I talk really fast and I go, and then I go, "You got time for that cup of tea?" "No, ain't got time. I'm off. See ya. I'm off the laundrette." Even just feeling it in my body, I don't have the patience to just be slow. So that's one of the things I love about mindfulness is it grounds me, slows me down.
I was gonna say, like, when you said that, it was interesting. It's opening up, shining a light, revealing a bit more in patience for me, and interpreting that word. And I'm wondering, if you feel as if, because you don't necessarily have patience like that in that regard, do you feel as if you miss out on anything? Is there any sort of like, I wish I did because then I'd have more of this?
Yeah, reading is one. Like, just finding time to sit and read. Bought myself 3 really great books a couple of months ago, and they're like biographies, like, Lemmy from Motorhead, Shaun Ryder from Happy Mondays. They're rock and roll anecdote stories, which I love. I just find them fascinating, and when I get into them, I love them. But I don't have the I notice to say I don't have. I choose not to sit and do them because I'd rather be doing something else. Is the story that goes, well, just put the telly on for a bit, or go and do a bit of DIY in the shepherd's hut, or whatever. Rather than having that, and it comes back to patience. Is having the patience to sit, turn everything off, and be, and get into a book.
Hmm.
And I noticed, like, my youngest teenage daughter, who's 15, has just started reading, like, properly reading. Like, she got so excited at Christmas opening books that we'd got for her. "Oh my god, it's this one!" And I was going, "Really? It's just a book?"
Yeah.
But she's read the first one.
Hmm.
She literally had, like, she was welling up. She was so excited, and it's so lovely to see her just sit in a big armchair in the house and just sit and read and be still and have the patience to just sit and be. Because I think it's important to connect to ourselves and just have some stillness. Living on adrenaline all the time is really not good for me. I know that, drinking coffee. But like, it's interesting what you just said about how you notice that I am really good at holding space and having patience. That's really interesting for me to hear that, actually. Because I also noticed that about myself. I do have the capacity to do it if I choose to do it, either professionally in my coaching men, or in a professional capacity. Then I can do it really well. It's almost like a superpower.
I think it definitely is a superpower, yeah, and I think all good coaches require it. It's essential in the DNA. But I suppose I don't know if I'm. How does this land? Rather, like if it's in service of others, then you've got it
Yeah.
in buckets. But if it's in service of your own experience of the world, then maybe you're not quite so patient with that. I do have a bit of FOMO about things, fear of missing out, which means that I jump from one thing to another. And also because I'm a real futurist. So my brain does move quick and my interest gets fueled and my excitement comes from moving quick. But I do miss out on, I think, a lot of peace
Mm.
through not practicing patience or not remembering to slow down at certain times.
What's your go-to then for when you do catch yourself and you do go, you know what, I really need a bit of peace and a bit of stillness. What's your go-to?
I that's a great question. I mean, I've if I don't, then I feel overwhelmed. I feel fragile and brittle and edgy and tired and emotional. All those good things. And, and then I'm either reminded by a friend or my partner or myself, um, And always the thing, always the cure is getting into nature. I go and have a walk in my local park, for instance, there's woodland there and there's open fields and there's pathways and there's space. And the minute I get up there, I start to meld into the originality of who I am as well. It's like I remember that patience is not a thing to strive for, but it already exists. I just need to plug myself back into my source. It's nature. The ocean is the ultimate one for me. If I get by that, then it totally reminds me of patience. Yeah.
I love what you said there about that patience is not a thing to strive for.
Hmm.
Like, it's the opposite, isn't it? It's like we strive for, then we're gonna talk about that in another episode, aren't we? Non-striving, but it's like, it's almost like I've gotta make it happen. I must be more patient. I wish I was more patient, but it's always available, isn't it? It's
Hmm.
always there. Nature for you is that has you connects you to that groundedness and that being still, and then all of that promotes patience. Like, it creates patience, doesn't it? It's like the machine that creates patience in your life. Well, yeah. Same
It
for me.
kind I see it as a sort of like a great wave. So if I'm being impatient, then it has a multiple negative effects on me through exhaustion, burnout, overwhelm, impatience. I ironically, how I act is impatient. Well, it's not ironic, but it makes sense, right? But if I get into nature again, then it's like this great wave that gently comes over the top of me and just sort of immerses me back into it, and then I remember. I don't remember with my thoughts, with my thinking. I'm held and I'm invited back into it again. And
Yeah.
it's like the clock slows right down, and there I am again, and there is no rush. It's okay.
That word is it, so we've got patience, but I've also noticed there that the other word, impatience.
Hmm.
So, like, what impatience wants to tell me something, I think. So if I notice I'm being impatient, I go, "Why am I?" Notice, I go, "That's really interesting. I'm being really impatient again. What does that want me to know?"
That's interesting.
Mm. It's like I can't be present in this moment. I'm being impatient to get over there. Why can't I be in this? And being in this, that might be, I might be frustrated, I might be angry, I might be sad, I might be melancholic, and I'm impatient to get to joy and happiness. For
Mm.
instance, this is one example. I'm impatient to get over there because I don't like it here. Don't like it in anger and frustration and sadness and grief. That's what impatience tells me.
So how does that link with? Well, it sounds like it does link with avoidance, like avoiding the moment.
Yeah, it's like I can't be here. I can't be in this place. I'm done with grief. I'm done with being sad. I want to go over there. But actually, what I've learned or starting to learn is, if I stay in grief and pain and sadness long enough, there's jewels there. There's gold. There's stuff that I need to learn. There's, um, yeah, there's learning there that I need to stay long enough to feel. That we're the wellness industry and social media constantly blurts at us that we should constantly be happy and joyful and be abundant with this and that. And it's not okay to stay in sadness and grief and not feeling good and anger. But actually, I believe the opposite. I'm starting to believe the opposite is true, because there's so much to learn. Even between season one and now, it was, I've learned so much around this, that working with this particular model around staying in what that what that is, and not being impatient to get to back to joy again. And it's like the weather, isn't it? The weather comes over us in black clouds. And you and I talk about this in our check-ins. Some days I can be really joyful and happy with my check-in, and this is happening. The next day, shitstorm. I'm really sad, feeling angry, frustrated.
Mm.
Next day, back to joy again. But
Mm.
actually, I'm feeling it as a flow, as like waves. And I noticed that word impatience is, like you say, what am I avoiding? What am I avoiding by being impatient to get over there?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the digital world, particularly technology and social media and everything, has this. I find anyway has this motivation underneath it, driving it to next shiny thing, new, fast, quick. You need to know what this is. You need to know what's going on here. You need to be aware there. And I think it kind of plays into that a great deal for me anyway. And I get a bit breathless when I think about, well, I'm not tracking this. I'm into AI and I'm looking at this. I'm really curious about that, but there's not enough hours in the day, and I get breathless and I get physically kind of distressed sometimes when I get hooked on the narrative that comes from that space.
Yeah. So what do you do? Go out in nature, right? That's again, the antidote to that.
When I can remember, yeah, yeah. Sometimes I think, "Oh god, why am I so exhausted?" Well, I'm so exhausted because everything's tight and constricted physically, and I'm being impatient with myself. I should be better at this. There's this great phrase which is like, I'm in the middle of a should storm, which is
Sure.
like, I really should do this, I should do that, I should do this. Someone said it a while back, and I love that. And I think those shoulds take the oxygen out of the potential in front of me and lead me to being impatient. It's like, "Oh, da, 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 da." If it's a should, then it's probably driven by an impatient requirement to achieve something.
Yeah. I'm noticing I'm actually feeling breath
Yeah.
short of breath talking about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've noticed my breath's gone really shallow. Are you? Yeah, just like
Oh, big time. Yeah, I'm totally in it. Yeah. There was
yeah.
one thing I just wanted to build on this as well.
Mm.
Because the two, I think the differentiator in the type of coaching that we trained in, coactive coaching, it has. Oh, I am out of breath. You're right.
Just have a minute. Have a fag, mate. Have a fag.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Have a drag on that, there you go. Yeah, there is doing and there's being, isn't there? A lot of coach modalities are doing and about setting goals, and a lot of the early coach training schools are all about setting goals, and I noticed that someone who might be a founder or an entrepreneur is setting those goals because they matter, but they are the only things that they have on their agenda, attaining that goal. And then there's a huge disappointment in the race in getting there and achieving that goal, let's say. There's a huge disappointment when they reach that goalpost or that flagpole, whatever metaphor you want to use, and they realize that there isn't a sense of satisfaction. They haven't had the patience to stop and check in with how they're being on that journey between here and that goal.
Mm.
And I think that because of that necessity, societal necessity to rush towards the thing, we lose out on the spaciousness in between here and there.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. The spaciousness, the bit in between, you know, what's that saying? While chasing a life, you're missing living one.
Oh, wow. Mm.
You know, just chasing, chasing, chasing. I really can resonate with that. I'm not being patient enough to just experience what's here now. So I know it's a mindfulness cliche, isn't it? Being in the moment, living in the moment. Like, this is now. Us recording this, doing this now is now. Got no idea what's going to happen at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Well, I've got a coaching client, but so I do know. But, you know, it's looking over there, isn't it? Constantly looking over. The grass is greener. If I can get this done by a certain time, then I'll be able to get to that thing. And that thing over there will be much more fun than where I am now.
I think there is something in that big time about, um, I notice that I'm much more patient if I go to a workshop or if I'm doing a course or if I'm being led and facilitated in something because I know that they've got the timeline, they've got the agenda, and I can be with it because they're holding that. They're holding that timeline container thing. And if it's down to me being at choice, I could do this, I could do that, could do this, being a entrepreneur company of one, then I'm not patient with myself. It's like, I could do this, but is that the right path to follow? I could do that one. I don't want to go down the wrong alley, fear of wasting time, but wasting whose time?
Interesting, yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of being in someone else's you're in someone else's garden, aren't you? Almost there by being facilitated or being at a workshop. They've got all that sorted out. They know what time lunch is. You don't have to take care of any of it. You're a
Um,
participant. You're traveling along their timeline. You don't have to worry.
and I really enjoy that. I really enjoy that. As long as I'm trusting the person who's holding that space and that timeline knows what they're doing and where they're going, and I know why I'm here. And
Yeah.
generally, it needs to be with other people as well. But I really love that, and I think maybe that is why people sign up for courses and then tell their friends about it, or workshops or retreats. In Ibiza and that they're like, "Oh, I'm going here. I can't wait to do that. I can't wait to be held in that space to do these things." And it's almost like permission and waiting for other people to give you the patience that you've been yearning for.
because you can switch off. You don't have to think anymore. When you're talking about being a solopreneur on a company of one, which I am too, we've got so much to think about all the time. We can't switch off. Oh, that's the assumption I make. I can't switch off. There's always something I need to be doing, I tell myself. But if you go and do a workshop for that 3 hours or for those 3 days, switch it off, phone off, be a tourist almost. You're a tourist for 3 days, aren't you? Just consuming, being carried along.
Yeah, it's a nice way of saying it, being a tourist. It reminds me actually of talking about retreats and things. It reminds me of doing a vision quest a few years back with a friend of mine, Carlos, and I was in nature. Nature, there's the connection again. I was in nature for 3 days and 3 nights, and just with water, no food, just in the same sit spot. And I had to have patience. There was no option, and I was fighting it to begin with at the beginning of that process. I had good intentions, but I was still fighting it. My monkey mind was like, "Get out of here! You've had enough." You
Mm,
know, I want a real Snickers bar or something like that. I was, I'd love some of that, and I was yearning
mm,
for what I couldn't have. And then there was a threshold I went across into after about a day and a half, where patience had to happen because I had no choice, and I stopped fighting it, and spaciousness caught up with me. I wasn't afraid of what would catch up with me. I think some people are. That's why they move really quick. But
yeah.
I just noticed it was like I'd made an agreement with patience that I would let it catch up with me in that space and time, because I knew I had 3 days and 3 nights, and I had no option there, but I knew it was in service of me.
Mm.
That was a real container and vessel and practice for patience. That was really fantastic. And the gifts were enormous.
Yeah, because you know it's gonna happen. You're on the ride. And the few occasions that I've done medicine ceremony, sat in ceremony, and you take the medicine and go through the night in a big teepee and do a sweat lodge. You're like, once you enter into that relationship with that medicine, you're in. That's it. That's for the whole night. And stuff happens, and there's purging, and being part of that process is enlightening because I have to just let go. There is nowhere to go. This journey has a beginning and it has an end. It has an arc of time. And there's a moment when I took this other particular medicine, and it was excruciatingly painful. These drops from the Amazon, they come from a particular plant in the Amazon, a tree, sap, and I forget what it's called now. But anyway, someone listening might know. And what I do is, and this is held in ceremony, right? This is like there was 8 guys and 2 facilitators. It's done properly. It's not, we aren't just in a around the back of Budgeons in Stroud going, yeah, I'll give us a bit of that, mate.
Lily oil.
This was held in ceremony. It was like a 3-day men's retreat, and there was lots of chanting and sweat lodge and all sorts. Anyway, put these drops in my eye. Who wants to go first? So cool. Gobby twat here goes, yeah, I'll go first. If this were, because the night before they were going to go, we're going to take this particular medicine, and a few of them sort of looked at each other like, "Oh God, really? At that time in the morning?" And I was like, "Oh shit!" So they put these drops in my eyes, like 2 drops in each eye, and it was the only way I can describe it was like putting battery acid and lemon juice into my eyes. Oh my God, I was writhing around on the floor, the pain. And what it's supposed to do is connect you to, to something, And I didn't know. There was no explanation. It's just come and do it, and whatever happens, happens. And the pain did not subside, Phil, one bit. Like 3 minutes went by, my brain. I was literally like in the hedge, vomiting in the hedge. It was so painful. Thinking, it's all right, hold on. And my knuckles were white. Like hold it. It felt like I was holding on to a black stallion. It was trying to throw me off it, like kicking it, like wow, trying to ride me off. 5 minutes went by, pain still hadn't subsided. 6 minutes, still hadn't subsided. And in one moment, I thought, let go. Just let go. Stop trying to control this thing and again, patience. I just had to just go, right, I need to let go. And as soon as I let go, I fell backwards onto the grass and realized I'd been holding on too much, trying to control this thing. It was all about me trying to control, and I had to let go of control. And that was my learning from it. And then eventually it started to subside, and the pain got less and less. And 10 minutes went by, And then I entered into this real sort of deep, sort of embryonic state. Like I felt like I'd been reborn. I was screaming like like I was being burnt alive, kind of screaming. It was horrible. I could hear all these other men doing the same thing all around me. And then this thing started to subside and everyone murmuring. And then we sat around a fire and we spoke about it. But for me, it's about letting go of control completely. But the patience thing was tied into it. That's why I mention it. Very powerful experience. Never to be done again, I think.
It was almost I love that, man. Thanks for sharing that. It's almost like it's enforced patience, isn't it? It's like the same thing with me with Vision Quest in a less painful way, but it's
Yeah.
like if you're not good at creating space for it to occur, then it can have some real negative effects. It can be really exhausting, overwhelming, burning out, and those sorts of things because we can't. It's like a phone, you unplug it and you try and make all these calls all day long and browse the internet and everything. Inevitably, the battery's going to run out. It's going to flatline. Yeah. And you're going to
Right.
look at you, and you wouldn't look at your phone and go, "Well, why the hell has this thing run out of battery
Mm.
entirely?" This is awful. This is rubbish. But
Yeah.
you would with yourself. What I do with myself, I'm like, "Come on, Phil. I'm still awake. I can still look at the screen. I can still do more." And I'm being really impatient with myself, and I'm not being mindful of my well-being, my capacity to do. Yeah.
Choosing doing over being. Yeah, 90% of the time, I think is the key for me. And what I'm hearing you say is not percentage, your percentage might be different to mine, but the choosing doing over being is the big key there.
Yeah. And it actually has me think we've only done 2 shows in this season so far, but this season feels a lot more spacious than the first season for me. I know we were new to it, so beginners to this whole process, but this one feels like we've got a lot more spaciousness between us and with each other. And so maybe that's having patience.
Where we don't talk over each other, you mean?
Where we don't talk over each other. Yeah, exactly.
I was getting impatient.
Is there anything else you want to talk about with impatience? Like, is there anything else that you've got curious about in this conversation, or do we want to draw it to a close?
I think that's good. I mean, tools
Mm,
in terms of tools, a few of the things that we've touched on today are around noticing an awareness of, you know, noticing when I'm being impatient to go over there and not stay here is a big one for me. So it's just about around awareness, just noticing. And when I work with my clients, it's like and just notice, stay curious, stay really curious all the time, noticing. Well, that's really interesting. I've just noticed I'm being impatient again. What am I avoiding?
I love it. And that's great because that's reminded me that we sort of set this intention of leaving the listeners with some tools or practices that they could take away from each of our uh, conversations. And what you've just reminded me of, like how do I recover when I feel impatient? Is taking a breath, a big breath into my diaphragm or into my stomach and giving myself that spaciousness. And I think what happens is, I think for me, impatience stems from the brain. And so it's kind of like, get on with it, do it quick, or adrenaline. If I breathe in through the nose, all the way into the belly, past my diaphragm, and then sigh, what I notice is my brain calms down and it feels okay going at half the pace, half the speed. Taking a sigh, we can't be impatient if we take a sigh. It's like, ah, you know?
Yeah, come back to wherever I am right now. Come back to here. Come back to now.
Yeah, and use the body as a way in.
Yeah, and those breaths, those reset breaths, and there are loads on YouTube. Russell Brand does some great, and obviously there's a Wim Hof dude, but there's some great reset breath techniques, and they just like literally breathe in 5, hold for 3, out for whatever. It doesn't. There's no science to how many seconds you hold for. I don't think, but definitely that in for 5 or 6, hold for 3 or 4, and then out for the out breath's really important. I'm starting to learn that out breath is actually more important than the in, apparently. That slow out breath kind of brings us back to center and be still.
Love it. So, there are some things that hopefully you can practice and you can try. Thank you for joining us for episode 2. patience. We'll be looking at beginner's mind next episode, so that's a really cool one to jump into.
Oh yes, that'll be juicy.
Yeah,
Not very good at beginner's mind. A bit of a know-all, Phil.
Okay, thank you for joining us, and yeah, keep your comments coming, keep your reviews coming. Thanks, we'll see you again next week. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It goes a heck of a long way to helping us reach more people who could benefit from our ramblings. And a quick favor, please share this episode with 2 friends. There's nothing like a good old word of mouth recommendation. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with another episode.